Hi, and welcome to the Lone Star Play Podcast, where we sit, eat, chat, and repeat. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong, and we are coming to you from Austin, Texas. The Lone Star Play Podcast is produced by Texas Real Food. Go to texasrealfood.com, and you can search your city for local restaurants, stores, butchers, farmers markets, and more who are using organic, fresh, artisanal, and local sources. It's a fun site that brings all natural options all together. All right, we have another great episode today for you. We have Clint Wells in the house. Clint. I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. Anyway, all right, Clint is, he lives in Nashville, Tennessee. He is a singer, songwriter, musician, and podcaster. The reason I'm bringing him on, he actually co-hosts a podcast with Bob Schneider. So Bob has come on the podcast, and we want to have Clint on as well. And the name of their podcast is, Are You Okay? I'm Okay. I don't think you're okay. I could be better. Something like that. I messed up the name, but we'll ask Clint about the name and get into that. It's kind of hard to remember, but at the same time, really fun too. So anyway, he also has another podcast called Metal Up Your Podcast. So that one's much easier for me to say. So Metal Up Your Podcast. It's basically like a Metallica podcast. Really awesome. He co-hosted it with a guy named Ethan Luck, who is also another great musician who's played with all kinds of great bands, the OC Supertones, Kings of Leon, and Reliant K, some stuff like that. So they both host that podcast about Metallica, and it's great. They got a huge fan base. It's been around a while, and check it out if you're into Metallica. You can learn a lot, and it's really, really cool. So sit back. Enjoy. It's a really great episode. Clint and I just start talking about food and music and life. And to be honest with you, have really great conversations about food in this episode. Really genuine guy. He's super sweet and just very insightful. And just an all-around great guy. I really enjoyed this conversation. I could have asked him a million more questions. So sit back, enjoy the episode. You're a musician, you're an artist, songwriter, singer, father, husband, a lot of things, right? You wear a lot of hats. Guitarist, I heard, I'd never heard your music before, and I went and listened to the stuff that you have on SoundCloud, and oh my God, man, like, holy shit, like, what the fuck? I just wasn't expecting that. I mean, I guess I knew you were going to be amazing, I get, right? But I don't know, man. Just, there's a song you have called Lone Wolf. I really liked that song a lot.
Thank you.
I was just blown away, man, by your voice. First of all, that's you singing, right?
Yes,
dude. Holy. I mean, I got a new list of songs to listen to, dude, which is great. Like, so amazing. Just really, so people know you do music, they can check you out. If you just Google your name, actually, a bunch of stuff comes up, which is great. I wish that came up when people Googled my name. It brings up other Patrick Armstrongs, which I hate, like some dude in Michigan that I just need to take out of this world. So,
luckily, Clint Wells is a kind of a unique name, and there used to be a famous athlete that would come up all the time, and
really?
The many hats I wear, athlete's not one. And then there was another guy that I found. I don't know why I did this, but I found another Clint Wells on Instagram or Twitter or something like 15 years ago, and we became friends. And he's really different than me. He's pretty religious, and he's like a marathon runner, but a real sweet guy. And so he's based out of Chicago. And so for years, I mean, literally years, anytime I was in Chicago, I would shoot him like an Instagram or Twitter DM or whatever, and say, "Hey, man, you're on the guest list plus whatever." And he never came to a show, and because I think he was a little weirded out by me at first. I have kind of a gregarious online presence, or at least I did when I was a little younger. And then the one time, I'm talking years of this guy, of me saying, "Dude, come to the show wherever we're playing." And the one year he wrote back, he's like, "Hey, are you really serious? Because I really am going to come." And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Of course I'm serious." Name to tell him when you get there. And then he didn't show. He didn't show up.
Oh, man.
That's when I kind of backed off after that. I'm like, all right, dude, you've given you too much of my time, Clint Wells.
You're giving Clint Wells is a bad name, right?
I just felt so someone like me reached out to me and was like, "Hey, both of our names are Clint Wells. Let's be friends," I would be like excited to do that.
Yeah. Why is that? If someone has your name, there's some sort of connection. See, but I'm the complete opposite from you. Like, you want to be friends with them. I want to eliminate them from the earth. Like, I just want to be the only Patrick Armstrong.
Oh yeah.
I don't want others out there ruin the name unless they're badass at
Right.
something. Then it's like, keep it going. Because then they're looking at me like I'm the one bringing it down.
There's really nothing in between either. Yeah, it's like I either want to be your best friend and start a volleyball team with you, or I want to murder you and kill you and get you out of competition.
Exactly.
It's like someone driving and they have your same car. You feel a strange kinship with them, and maybe you give a little honk, and then they don't do it back. They're like, you dick. Couldn't even honk for 1 second and acknowledge that we have the same car.
I think it depends what car, because look, I drive around in a Kia Forte, and I'm going to tell you right now, they ain't nobody want me honking at them at the stoplight. Like, oh, look, Kias. Like,
I drive a Sorrento, so I'm right there with you. If I ever
That's hilarious. When I had a Jeep, that was I found out about the Jeep, family and the Wave and all that, and it exists. It's real. It's the only vehicle I know of that's truly like, no matter where you are, you can do the Jeep Wave. That's kind of cool.
Change like a knowing nod, or maybe a little half smile, like that's right, dude.
The Kia smirk, we could just have something like that. Yeah, that's hilarious. So Clint, look, you do 2 badass podcasts. First of all, just to have one badass podcast is amazing, but you have 2 badass podcasts, which is on top of already, an amazing life you get to lead doing music. So the Metal Up Your podcast, right? So that one is, I listened to an episode today, actually. Very interesting concept. So let me, tell me if I'm wrong, but this is basically like Mystery Science Theater 3000, but like with a live show.
It's become that, yeah. So it's me and another professional musician, a wonderful guy named Ethan Luck, who lives here in Nashville. He was in Kings of Leon and the OC Supertones, a bunch of big bands that people like.
Reliant K too, right? I looked him up.
Right, Reliant K. And
God, Kings of Leon. So he was in Kings of Leon?
Well, he has an interesting story. He was the guitar tech for their like backup guitar player guy, and then that guy left, and he became the guitar player for about a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he kind of got to be in the band, but he's not like one of the brothers.
Sure, dude. I mean,
we're in the side guy world, so that's kind of what we're used to. That's what our main day jobs are, just side guys for a lot of different artists and bands. But so we do a weekly Metallica podcast where we just talk about anything Metallica, and it's not that Mystery Science 3000 thing you're talking about, but since quarantine sort of happened, Metallica's been putting out weekly like live streams, and because me and Ethan can't be in the same room and life's kind of insane right now, we thought, well, a good way to keep giving our listeners content without having to research like the Black Album again or whatever is we just watch those shows together with running commentary, and then I edit them really quick after it's done, and we get them out Monday night so that a lot of our fans won't even watch the Metallica live stream. They'll just watch it when we have our episode uploaded. So it's like they're watching it with a couple of Metallica nerds. So
that's
what
awesome.
you've heard the last couple of weeks is pretty unusual, but it's become the norm just because the world's so strange.
I like it. I actually liked it a lot because just like you said, you throw on, you know what I mean? You throw on the live stream and listen to you guys and the music. You kind of hanging out with a couple of dudes who know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to the music.
Right.
On top of that, yeah, I think it's a great idea, to be honest with you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I'm not a metal person, a metal person. That sounds so lame to say. I don't even know the right terminology to say a metalhead. Are there songs of Metallica I enjoy? Of course. And when I was younger, I listened to them. What's funny is I used to listen to them in middle school, but I hated them. But I only listened to them because my friends listened to them and they liked them so much. And they thought they were so cool and so badass. And, we skated and shit. And it was like, oh, you got to listen to Metallica. I was like, okay, yeah, Master of Puppets. But I really hated them. Like, I didn't like them at all. I hated the music. I would like just listen to it thinking, when is this going to end? I just want to, listen to something else. But it was so weird. I have such a weird appreciation for Metallica. I mean, I respect them obviously as musicians and everything they do. They're legends. But now in my adult, as I became older, really when I started playing music myself in my early 20s, I really did gain an appreciation for them. I did start to listen to them, and I did actually start to like them. Which is a funny thing. But why Metallica of all bands?
Well, it was a big part of our childhoods. Most of the music that you connect with when you're around 12 and 13 is just music that, for you, it wasn't Metallica, but I'm sure whatever the music was when you were 12 and 13, that's just stuff that will never leave you. It's magic.
Sure. Yeah.
Ethan and I both shared that. Although I think what's really interesting about the show is that neither of us are kind of typical metalheads. I mean, we both listen to, Ethan makes reggae music, and I listen to a lot of Lana Del Rey and Billie Eilish and Dylan, and we come to the table not as like tribal metalheads, but a kind of more well-rounded, diverse music lovers, and Metallica is just part of it. Ethan had the idea, and he wanted me to do it with him, and I kept saying no. It was sort of like 6 months. I was like, dude, I don't want to do it because I like to make a lot of things. I like to work, and I like for the stuff I do to be as good as possible. And I knew that to make a good podcast, as I'm sure you know, it just takes a lot of time and energy that people probably would take for granted. Of like, the editing's got to be great, the content's got to be great, well researched, the marketing and making sure that we have a good push on social media. I just knew that would take time. He finally wrangled me into it, and it basically started as just we would go to our favorite local bar in Nashville and talk about Metallica all night. We were like, shit, dude, this is basically just the podcast. We should just record it and see if people like it. And, we got on board really quick. There weren't many others when we started, maybe one. And then about 5 cropped up right after us. So kind of like the other Clint Wellses of the world, like they're all my buddies and we get along with them. But I also have a desire to like crush any podcast. Which is mostly a joke, but anyway, but we got a plan together, and Ethan thankfully takes it as seriously as I do, and now we're about 4 years in, and we've got this really cool community of listeners, and we throw these parties every year that people fly in from all over the country to go to,
really?
Oh yeah, we throw these anniversary parties in January every year in Nashville, and one year it coincidentally happened to happen while Metallica was playing in town the next day.
Oh, shit.
Huge party, and like a bunch of their crew. We're friendly with a lot of people in their crew now, and we're not like friends with the band or anything. We haven't had them on, but I kind of see them as like the last Zelda boss to get to. Have them on. It's like fighting Bowser at the end of Mario or something. But it's grown into this really big community, and a lot of the people we've met on that journey through that podcast have become legitimate friends of mine in real life. So it's been. Wow. And the further I get into it, the more it does seem weird that it is Metallica for me. I'm like, yeah, I guess I do a Metallica podcast.
No, that's great. I mean, again, they're legends, right? Like, even if you don't like their music, there's no way you can't appreciate them as a band, right? I mean, it's like,
well, they've made so many different kinds of records and reinvented themselves so many times and had like just world-crushing success. So there's actually a lot of interesting stuff there over their 40-year career. Band members coming and going, and one of the band members tragically passed away. They made. The lead singer has been into rehab a couple times. They made an album that everyone hated. Then they made a documentary about the making of that album that everyone loved. It's like there's a lot to talk about there for real.
The Napster shit, when Napster went down. I mean, Metallica had a big part in that push, right? To like,
they were the only ones that were publicly, they received a lot of criticism for that. And
absolutely
years later that a lot of what they were banging on about was true and correct and came to be. And
what do you think of? How do you feel about all that? Like, especially just like you said, is it they sort of profits in a way because a lot of what they were worried about, that's the reality now.
I think people are surprising and beautiful and very awesome and stuff. Usually one-on-one. But get a bunch of people together and they're not real bright. And there was just a lot of a lot of misunderstanding about like, wait a minute, Lars, he's rich. Why should he, or what are they suing their fans? And it's like, no, they're not suing their fans. They're suing these companies and they're fighting. They don't care about the money. They're gajillionaires. They're fighting for bands that can't afford to sue these companies. So in a lot of ways, they were going to bat for smaller bands. And I thought they were actually advocates for indie rock and indie bands all over the world, and were scorned, especially Lars, the drummer, took the brunt of it. They were an easy target. They were big, bloated, rich rock stars. And it was a confusing issue because digital downloading MP3s was such a new thing. People didn't really understand it. And yeah, time has kind of justified what they were on about. But like anything, people don't really it's not like everyone's going, "Oh, we're sorry, Lars, we were wrong." Everyone's just kind of like, "Oh, what happened? They sued who? Whatever. He's an asshole." The end.
Totally. Right. Yeah. That's a good way to, yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's definitely an interesting time with music and how to get the music, right? Like into your head as opposed to how you used to do it, you know? So like you've been in the music industry for, you know, a long time yourself. How have you seen it change for like how people digest music now?
Well, the problem with money revenue getting out of like actual selling albums, it just caused a strange ripple effect where more bands had to go on the road, which is fine. But the more bands that are on the road, the less options a consumer has to go see. You know what I mean? Like if
Oh yeah.
your favorite bands are playing this summer, you can only go see five. Now 25 of your favorite bands are playing this summer and you can only see three, you know? So that's just gotten really interesting, and it's kind of like what's happening just economically in the country anyway. Just the middle class of musicians and bands are dying and can't support their art. They can't get
Oh,
in the band anymore and pay for the gas or pay for the hotel just to play a club for 100 people who are hungry for their music. So at this point, the infrastructure just really supports people who are already well off or who are so famous on Instagram or can generate revenue through other means. And it's not really right or wrong, you know, it doesn't really work that way. It's just the way the market is. And I think it is getting better. I mean, companies like Spotify are getting a little more hip to having to pay songwriters and publishing and mechanicals on stuff, but there's going to be there was a big fallout, I think, a big gap of musicians who just can't do it anymore. And
yeah.
that makes me sad. And you can't even really measure the impact of something not being there yet, you know? Um, so for me personally, I've been pretty lucky because I just get paid to play guitar, or I get paid through my publishing company to write songs for like film and TV or for country artists and stuff. And not that much has changed for me because I've been able to play gigs at a level where the artists I play for are of a stature where they can survive these kinds of changes in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But I just worry about what I would have done with the artists I was coming up with when I was in my early 20s, you know, or if I was getting
Totally.
songwriting in my early 20s. It makes me sad for a generation of artists and musicians that we won't be able to hear. And I think we need to hear them, you know? So
So is it like, are the days of like a garage band, are those days gone?
no, because people, you know, like you don't know, the young kids don't even know what they're up against. So people are always going to want to get in a garage with their buddies and make music, or you know, these days it's less garage rock and more people are going to want to get in a room with a laptop and a MIDI controller. And
Yeah.
which is fine. It's like the new rock and roll is doing that. And the cool thing about now is someone like a 12-year-old kid who's making some awesome beats, like a Skrillex type kid, can immediately have he can immediately have access to people who want to hear his music.
Yeah.
You can upload something to SoundCloud. Now, when I was a kid making little horrible songs on my Tascam 4-track, no one was going to hear those except my poor girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Now someone can make something
That's
and
funny.
immediately can express themselves, and then they can find other people, other like-minded kids to share it with and jam with and collaborate with. So there are all sorts of cool things that are coming with the technology, and we just got to find our way through it and find a way that makes sense to keep it alive as an industry and not just something that rich people can play with.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, you know, the fact that anybody can, you know, put some music out on the internet is a good thing, but the fact that anybody can put any music out on the internet is a bad thing in some ways, right? Like it's such a weird thing because it dilutes a lot. I mean, I know for myself, you know, not that I'm old or anything, but I'm 40. And I guess when I started turning 40, all of a sudden, and actually maybe even a couple of years ago, I started seeing the get off my lawn aspects of my personality come out. I was like, where did that come from? Like all of a sudden it was like, oh, I can't listen to that. What's this new music? I'm, you know, still stuck listening to 90s rock. Like I can't get out of it for some reason. Like I all of a sudden became my father. You know, it was like anything new coming about. It just really, there's just so much to listen to. I don't even know where to begin, you know?
Yeah.
So really all I do is when I come across new artists like yourself or, you know, other people that I've been, you know, that do the podcast with or whatever, somebody will, you know, locally here in Austin, you know, that's really it. I end up listening to any new music I listen to. It's really local stuff or somebody I know of some way. That's really all I know. Like I couldn't tell you a Billie Eilish song. I couldn't tell you. I don't even know an artist to say, like, you know what I mean? Like it's so weird. Like, do you feel like that there's a lot of people like me, or do you think I'm just like some idiot? You know what I mean? Like I mean, what do you think? Like, is it too diluted? Is it, I mean, I don't know.
It's
What do
definitely it's definitely too diluted, but I think that what these platforms like Spotify have done a pretty good job of, I think, is like curation, where they're like, well, if you're listening to a lot of Billie Eilish, you might like this other thing over here, and it feeds off these algorithms that, in my opinion, in a scary way, get to know you a little too well. You know,
yeah, for
like my
sure.
phone is listening and telling, my phone knows when I'm grumpy and will play me like a Ryan Adams song or something. I don't know how I feel about that.
That's hilarious.
But but yeah, I think, I mean, I'm 36. I'll be 37 this year, and I definitely am becoming grumpier as I get older. And
Yeah,
I'm
grumpy. Exactly. Yeah.
less interested in like going to Pitchfork.com and like getting hip and then wading through 30 garbage bands of noise rock to find the one little diamond in the rough. But I'm lucky that a lot of my close friends are musicians and songwriters, so I use my friends a lot as a barometer that kind of keep my ear to the ground through my friendships. And then, of course,
Yeah.
through like, I think film and TV is a really great place to find new music now. And I write for film and TV a lot, so I know what that's like. There's a lot of really cool artists writing for that medium. And, my wife and I were watching the show Big Little Lies, the HBO show with Nicole
Oh
Kidman.
yeah.
It's the music on that whole show. I found myself Shazamming, the app where you can just figure out what it is. And that's been cool. Like, that's something that I couldn't do when I was a kid. I'd hear a song in a record store and be like, hopefully I can find someone who knows what it is or something.
Yeah.
But I also miss that too. I miss another way of curation of having a local record store, and you knew the weird guy in there that, that lived with his mom, but he knew everything about, 60s psychedelic music and could give you a Strawberry Alarm Clock record and blow your fucking mind and change your life even. So that's kind of gone now. We've replaced all that with robots and algorithms, and they may hit you harder because they've learned your behavior, but music is losing a lot of that, the mystery and magic and the discovery. You know what I mean? That's one thing I do feel bummed about. But like you, I don't know if that's accurate or if I'm just an old asshole. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's probably a little bit of both, I'd like to believe. But look, bottom line, I know new music is getting made, and I know people are listening to it, so I don't really worry about it too much. I'm one of the weird guys about music. Like, I'll just say, Alexa, play blues music, right? And she'll just start playing stuff, and I don't even know what I'm listening to. I don't really care. It just, if it's got a good beat to it, I'm in. I don't need much. I like music with no lyrics. I like a lot of just musical music, Latin stuff.
Mhm.
Really, really, I'm Latin myself, so I love Latin music. Anything with a good beat, a good rhythm.
My wife's the same way. My wife's Puerto Rican, and she'll put on Shakira, and she doesn't like care what the lyrics are. I mean, she doesn't even think about the lyrics. Now, she's smart and she likes great music and she likes great statements, and she can hone in on what's cool about like a Bob Dylan thing, for example, who's mainly a lyrics artist. But I think most people are like her. Music for them is an outlet for fun.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's been like a brooding, poetic,
Totally.
like I'm like a little tortured, artist to connect to the Cure and the Smiths. I'd rather Morrissey understands me, and from that, it's less fun for me. Although of course it is fun, but I'm a little more esoteric. But I think most people just want to have a good time and escape a little bit. It's just, that's what entertainment and art does for most people.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because you do music as, it's your job, it's how you make a living. So it's got to have a different, almost got to see it different way sometimes. I'm sure if you're doing it for work, it's one way. And if you're doing it maybe for a project, you're, pushing yourself, it's another way. I'm kind of the same way with food. I've been in the restaurant industry for so long, and like, you kind of get numb to the food and the things that other people are excited about, and they come and talk to you about, and you're kind of like, man, been there, done that a gazillion times. It's not that exciting for me anymore. Or like, say for instance, like a famous chef that I've worked with, right? people think, oh, that guy must eat foie gras and duck meat all day long every week. It's like, honestly, that dude popped a fucking hot pocket in at the end of the night when he went home. And that's the the reality of things. Is it like that in music in some ways? You know what I mean? I don't, does that make sense what I'm saying?
It is, and but well, I mean, for 4 years I toured with a country artist named Rodney Atkins, and I can promise you, I'm not sitting at home in my private time listening to popular country music.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of my peers who do what I do in town are sort of displaced rock kids, and we all sort of found our way in different parts of the industry. And I also write commercial country songs for artists. So for me, what I've learned, I mean, if you could see my studio right now, dude, my wife, my poor wife, covered in, let's see. Well, first of all, there's like 40 skulls in here because I love skulls. There's a poster of Eraserhead, a bunch of Bob Dylan, posters for The Exorcist, Alien, Easy Rider, a million guitars, Freddy Krueger action figures, Kiss dolls, Metallica posters, art. And the reason that it's like this, it's almost like the childhood bedroom I wish I could have had if I had had a job when I was a kid.
Yeah, if you had money when you were a kid.
Money, and the reason for all that is I wanted everywhere I looked in this room to remind me of why I love this shit. And to sort of reanimate the kid in me. And that's what helps, because I'm a 36-year-old dude who has a family to take care of. So I can't really afford to not take it seriously as a vocation and like worry about what's commercial, what's going to generate income for my family.
Sure.
So the balance of like, okay, but I can't also hate everything I do and feel like I'm just a robot. So for me, having all the stuff around, that's my way through getting excited about what I do. Even if because here's how I've always felt too. Like, let's say that my publishing company are like, hey, we need you to write a Florida Georgia Line song tomorrow. And, are you familiar with Florida Georgia Line? Kind of this butt rock country band. It's incredibly popular. I mean, they do this. However, they're not high on the list of cool. There's not a lot of credibility for someone. But if my publishing company is like, hey, can you write a song for Florida Georgia Line? I take it really seriously, and I would say to them, absolutely. And I'm going to go listen to their last 5 singles, that last 5 number ones. I'm going to read a little bit about them. And I'm going to go in that room and write the best goddamn song I can for them without being a jerk, without being an elitist or cynical. And I think that's important too,
Yeah, absolutely.
If you decide to take the gig, you do a good job.
Yeah, 100%.
Like you're betraying some sort of personal credibility, then don't take the fucking gig.
I agree with that. And that is a chef thing too. Like a chef that maybe versed in French cuisine is now, cooking, I don't know, making hamburgers at some spot, right? Like he might feel pretentious or above, like it's above him or something. But the reality is no, like, look at how can you make that burger the best burger you've ever had? That's absolutely the same. You have to have the same mentality in food too. Like that's no different, like you said, if you take the gig, give it everything you got. And that's a huge thing in a kitchen, is giving it all you got, right? There is no bullshit in a fucking kitchen. You will not last 2 seconds. It's very military like in that sense. So,
well, and it's good for your reputation too. And it's just good for your mental health. I feel.
Yeah. Why would you do it? Why would you not give it your all if you're going to do it? Right. Like, absolutely.
Well, I've been in rooms too where it's like, oh, we have to write this shitty song. Let's just make fun of it the whole time. And I'm like, man, I got better ways to spend my time. I just really do. I'm not better than anybody, but I'd rather not. I'd rather take that day and just do anything else, actually. That's the goal. Let's shoot for the goal and let's make it great.
Absolutely, man. I mean, look, it's, again, your name's on it, like you said, your reputation. Plus, it's just, anything I do, dude, if I'm washing the dishes, I try to do it the best I can. If I'm, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I'm writing something, I try to write it the best I can. If I'm walking to the mailbox, I'm like doing the best walk I got. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I don't know any other way to just give it everything I got, no matter what I'm doing. Especially if it's something don't know how to do very well or not familiar with, then I'm really going to focus, even more so on top of that.
Right.
Clint, I wanted to talk to you about, this is a funny thing that we're emailing and stuff about the podcast, and you made a comment like, hey, I don't know anything about food. So, and I get what you're saying, because some people will tell me that when they come on the podcast, like, just so you know, I don't know anything about food. But the same response I gave you is the same response I give everybody. Like, we all eat, so we know more about food than we think. That's the honest truth. But really, what I want to know from you is like, I'm curious as someone not from the industry. This is why I like having people that aren't from the restaurant industry on to talk a little bit about food, to get their perspective. So this is what I want to ask you. Do you actually? Well, I actually have a few questions, but do you care at all like what you eat? Do you watch it like at all, or you just eat whatever you eat?
No, I have a strange relationship with food where you know, I'm a vain person, and my job is usually on a stage in front of people, so I'm always worried about what I'm eating, and I'm always worried about calories, and and I seesaw through. I mean, before the whole pandemic thing, I lost about 40 pounds in about 5 months through a lot. I was running 5 miles a day. I was like really paying attention to what I was putting in my body. I felt great, felt awesome. But I'm also kind of a temperamental artist type dude who struggles with some mental shit. So that turns into eating stuff too. So I feel like I'm always, I very rarely just eat and don't think about eating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that can be anything, because it's a control thing. So whether I'm not eating something, I feel like I'm in control. And then if I'm eating, if I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to go to Taco Bell and get $10 worth of Taco Bell, which by the way is like a mountain of food.
Yeah.
That's my way of controlling what feels uncontrollable too. So I do think about it, but in terms of like the quality of food, anytime I've been in a situation, which I have been a lot on tour, depending on kind of who I'm rolling with, if they're kind of balling, had some really great food, and I can tell it's great. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I've had someone put a $10 cup of coffee in my hands, and I'll drink it. I'm like, yep, I get it. Guy who will go buy it with my own money.
Sure.
That makes sense? Sure.
Of course. Absolutely. That's actually the majority of people is that.
Yeah. Right. My wife, I think, cares more, and she's an amazing cook. And
she's Latin, dog. Latins are trained from... Desde pequeño estamos entrenados. Like, we're trained from young to care about food. Like, that's the truth.
Her mom's Puerto Rican cooking, like carne asada and
Boricua. Yeah, your wife's Boricua.
It's just amazing, dude. And she's fascinating too, because here's how I cook. I'll look at a recipe and I'll do everything exactly what it says, and it still won't be right. She'll sort of like improvise and just, you know, won't measure things, and it's always great. So I don't know, maybe you could explain it to me. That just seems like more of a talent for it than me. But
yeah, it's just like playing, you know, you pick up a guitar, right? You don't know how to play chords, you don't know what you're doing. It takes time. You got to learn it, and you do it. And with time, you become better at just shredding, if you will, right? Just doodling around. The same thing with cooking. Look, there's cooking and baking. Baking is all about precision. Right, baking is a science. So there, you do want to measure everything to the last whatever, you know, weigh everything. Everything has to be perfect. But when it comes to cooking, it's just like what your wife does. That's how I cook too. That's actually how a lot of chefs cook in restaurants too. You can ask them, hey, what's the recipe for this? They're like, I don't know. I just do this, this, and this, and this. Because also recipes can't really work because everybody's heat is different. So your stove is different from my stove, and my oven's different from your oven, and you're right, the temperatures are different, and altitudes are different, humidity's different, water is different, you know, butter, eggs, milk, all these things that you're going to put in, it's all different. So depending on where you are, it doesn't really work. Honestly, man, if I can just be frank with you, 99% of recipes you find online are absolute bullshit. They're thrown together without even... Honestly, 9 times out of 10, they don't even make the dish they make a recipe for. They might make the dish to take a quick picture and then do some other bullshit, but most recipes are just nonsense. They don't even actually work. They don't actually work as the recipe. So if you do follow it like it says, it won't come out good. That's the majority of recipe, and that's why yours didn't come out good. So that's the truth. It's not even your fault. You started with something bad you didn't even know. Like,
I'm loving this. This is my favorite thing I've learned today, is that when I make bad food, it's not my fault.
It's not. Yeah.
Let me. Whoa. You're like my only friend that I've ever talked to that knows about food in this way. So I'm just curious, because we watch a lot of food shows, because we're fascinated by that. So let me get your hot takes on some of these people. Maybe not them as people, but you know what I mean. Like,
sure.
What do you think about the Barefoot Contessa lady? Do you know that chick?
Who? Barefoot Contessa?
That's her show, The Barefoot Contessa. It's on Food Network. Or what do you think about Bobby Flay?
Yeah, Bobby Flay. Bobby Flay is fantastic. I actually worked for many years with the chef that trained Bobby Flay, Stephen Piles.
Okay. I love watching his show because
He's awesome.
he has like a nice air about him where he's a little snarky, but mostly pretty self-effacing and funny. And he just seems fucking talented, dude, at making
He
stuff.
is. He's legit. He's a legit chef. So he's not like a TV chef.
Right,
He's a legit chef. Like he came from, working from nothing to, where he's legit. I would definitely watch all of his stuff. Like Gordon Ramsay. These are people that are legit chefs that you can watch.
What about that Restaurant Impossible show? You ever watch that show?
Yeah, I've seen that show. Some stuff yes, some stuff no.
It's interesting how popular food shows are now.
They're huge, right? There's so many.
And I guess it's because people like me who don't know much about food or who would say that, and I still watch all that stuff. So they can just get everybody because they can get people like you who love food and people like me who don't really know.
To be honest with you, I don't watch food shows.
Really?
Yeah, it's so weird. So that's not true. I watch some. I'm very particular about the ones I watch, just because I don't want to watch too much stuff about food. I deal with food all day long, so like my free time, I'd rather watch some other shit. I'd rather watch Ozark or fucking Stranger Things, or you know what I mean, like some other shit. That's my thing. Weirdly, that's just what it is. That's honestly a lot of food people are that are actually in the industry are very much like myself. That don't watch a lot of.
What's your ratio for like you're like a food guy making food for yourself? That's like wow, chef's kiss versus throwing the hot pocket in. Like what's an average week like in terms of how often are you doing the nice thing versus the normal thing?
Great question. I would say, okay, forget the pandemic. Let's just say if a pandemic wasn't going on, I would say I cook, 85% of my meals during the week. So good stuff. The rest, 15% is filler stuff, but it's not even going to be filler, what you might consider filler. It's stuff I pre-made that's still good.
Yeah.
But I just have it ready to heat up in the microwave. So
right.
I will use Chef Mike every once in a while. I will hit up Chef Mike, no problem. But very occasionally, and I know what it's for.
Right.
I would never dare use one in a restaurant.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So yeah, that's my thing. But I mean, it's sandwiches. I cook a lot of rice, pastas. I get these farm boxes from a local farm place, and it's different all the time. So I just kind of use what's available, what's fresh, what's going on.
Yeah, we do that. We have oh God, I forget what it's called, but we get a box of food every couple of days that's I guess rejected veggies and fruits because they're edible, but there's something.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Like they're like misshapen and stuff, that sort of thing.
And it's kind of a mystery box, and so it's fun for my wife to get that mystery box for the week, and then be like, "Cool, we'll do A, B, and C." And I'm lucky, dude, because I'll just eat anything she makes, and
that's awesome.
Take thought out of it but I'm also the kind of dude that could eat the same thing every day.
I go through that stuff too, man. I remember this one. It was a Spanish, Indian, and Turkish restaurant that I worked at. So it was all together, and it was small plates. We made this one dish in particular. It's we called it butter chicken. It has many names: tandoori chicken, where it's just like this orange, creamy, sort of nutty tomato sauce with rice and cubes of chicken. It's very simple. That's it. That's all it is. White rice and those three things. I ate that every day for, I swear, 18 months. Like, my God. I mean, it was like, and everybody ate it at the restaurant. It was just like the most addictive thing. So that can happen to me too, man. I find a good sandwich place or a good sandwich somewhere or good tacos somewhere. Wow, I can do the same thing. If it's good, why not? I don't, what's the problem?
I find for me, and I've spent most of my life on the road, and so trying to find ways of routine on the road is really crucial to not destroying yourself out there. So for me, because food always has held a certain kind of negative power because of this stuff I was talking about a little earlier, for me to just like, okay, I'm going to meal prep grilled chicken and green beans. I'm going to have 8 of those. It takes some of the power that food holds over me.
Sure.
And it gives me a sense of like, I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
That's kind of important for me. It's kind of similar to how you were like, look, this, Alexa, play jazz music or play blues.
Yeah.
It takes some of that. You don't have to worry about it. You just know you like it. You want it there. It's nice. And then you can move on and do the things you care about, you know?
Absolutely. That's funny. Look, move on to the things you care about. I love that. Cause some, like people love food, right? So that's what they care about. But I get it. Like I used to not even care about food before I got in the food industry. I used to look at food as like sort of in my way. Like I've got to take time out of my day to eat. God damn, I got other shit to do. Like I get it. Like I've been there. I've done that. But what really it's important what you put in your body at the end of the day,
Yeah. Well, when I'm my best self and I'm paying attention to that stuff, I feel the best for sure.
Yes.
And I'm doing it, it's like, when will I learn? But I feel like the older I get, at least one of the little net positives of getting older is I can actually look back and be like, okay, dummy, feel better and you like yourself more.
Yes.
So let's do the things that make you like yourself. And so
you'll write better music, dude. You'll be a better musician. You'll be a better artist. It'll clear up your, mentally. Like there's so many benefits to it, right?
Absolutely.
Easier said than done. Like, even though I cook all my meals, doesn't mean everything I eat is healthy, if that makes sense. Like I like a lot of butter and olive oil and fucking spices and shit. So sometimes the meals I'm having, even though I'm cooking them myself, it's not entirely healthy.
Right.
Better than processed food. Anything is better than processed food.
When I'm doing good, we don't eat any of that shit at all. And then if I go like 2 or 3 months and I'm exercising and I'm eating well, when I do eat some of that, if it's like late and I'm drunk or something, my body is like, this is poison. Like it'll give me like a headache and make me sick. It's weird how your body, once it gets a break from that processed shit, your body will tell you,
Absolutely. I get sick if I eat. I mean, not that I'm against it. I'm against it in the general sense, just because I come from the restaurant industry and that's fast food. But I'm not pretentiously against it. Meaning, if someone says like, "Yeah, I just went to Taco Bell," but I'm not gonna be like, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you fucking asshole. I'm not like that. Great, how was it? Okay, cool. Like, I don't give a fuck. It's your food. But am I gonna advocate for Taco Bell? Hell no. Am I gonna be telling people to go to Taco Bell? Never. I would never tell somebody to go eat at Taco Bell. Now, how do I eat at Taco Bell every once in a while? Yes, I do. I admit it. I'm not gonna lie about it. I've eat at McDonald's every once in a while. Whatever place I'll make a stop probably once every 3 months is what happens. I get some fast food for whatever reason it may be. Usually it's time. Something with time has prevented me from being able to cook something for myself, or I didn't have something prepped. So now I got to get some fast food. And there's no P. Terry's around. In Austin, there's a place called P. Terry's. It's a great burger place that I love. That I will eat. But, man, I'll stop over at or whatever. And when I'm finished eating it, I feel like I'm going to die. My body instantly rejects it. And I get like hot flashes and like, I honestly feel like throwing up after, like my stomach starts to, if it's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
It's weird.
We run into that. It's funny you saying like, I won't tell anyone to eat it, but occasionally I'll eat it. We've got a 5-year-old at home. And so the food thing will come into play with that too, where it's like, man, if the right circumstances are happening, you're like, just get the kids some quick food. It'll have a toy in it.
Yeah.
And the mental break is worth the dietary shit. But it is interesting because we always are talking to our kid about food, and she sees us cook all the time, and she cooks a lot with my wife. And so she'll be like, we'll just get McDonald's or whatever. And she's like, but this is unhealthy. We're like, yeah. I mean, true. Yes. But I'm eating it. Yeah. Just eat it. Just enjoy it. Put more ketchup on it. You'll be fine.
Put more ketchup. But at least she knows.
Right.
Like, I get that. Like, I get that. Like, that's what I feel fast food is reserved for, should be reserved for, are those moments. It's when you have the opportunity to cook something and then you're like, nope, I'm just going to go pick this up. Right. You have a choice. Like if you have the time to make some food for yourself, do it. I promise you it's cheaper. The quality is better. And when you see the meals you can actually put together on a plate, you'll be like, holy shit, why have I been buying shitty food all this time? This took me 20 minutes and it cost me $3. Like, and it's the best thing I've had in whatever time, like people will surprise themselves if they just start getting into it. And it doesn't take long. Within a couple weeks, you'd be in a routine of cooking for yourself that you would be so happy with. Again, the money you save, the health aspects or whatever. And then if you do decide to break free and go have a, you know, gordita, nacho grande, whatever they got, you're not, you actually won't feel as guilty because you're like, damn, I eat pretty good all the time, you know, so one
Right.
little whatever is not going to hurt me.
Well, one of the silver linings of the pandemic is we've been taking it pretty seriously and stayed locked down most of the time. We've only eaten out 2 or 3 times in like 50 days.
Yeah.
One of the silver linings has been just cooking more here, seeing how much money we were spending on food, and just getting some perspective, trying to take advantage of like, you know, the boundaries that are on us now. So that's been interesting for both of us to check out.
Yeah, that's true. So you've been trying like different new styles of food?
Yeah. Well,
That's
my
good.
my wife is the type of person, I don't know if you're like this, she doesn't like to eat the same thing twice. So she's always looking for something different to do. And
I like that too. I do like changing it up.
yeah, and luckily I'll eat anything. There's only a few things I don't really dig, so I'm down to eat whatever she's making. And she's really probably like you. She's really hard on herself about it. Like she'll make something and be like, it didn't work, and I'm like, this is amazing.
That's me every time I cook. I'm never happy with anything. Honestly, I don't think I've ever been happy with a dish I've ever made in my life. I'm at the end of it. I'm like, it could have been better.
Damn.
That's everybody. I don't know any chef that doesn't say that. To be frank with you, I don't know any chef, even like the James Beard Award-winning chefs I've worked with. They still, it could have been better. Even Aaron Franklin. I worked with Aaron Franklin. Even Aaron Franklin, done with a brisket, you know, the best brisket in the world. Still, him saying it could have been better.
There's a lot of artists that I know, and Bob Schneider's one of them, who I know has been on your show before.
Yeah.
And when he makes a record, he tells me that like he'll never listen to it again. He works as hard as he can on it. He makes it as best as it can be, gets the great musicians involved. And then even if it's like a record that's acclaimed, he's like, I just won't listen to it anymore. Because what you inevitably hear are ways that it could have been better.
Exactly. Yes, that's pretty much it. And in fact, sometimes this sounds weird too, but sometimes getting a compliment about the meal can really piss you off because you're like, no, it's not that good. So why are you saying that? Like it's a little overcooked, you know, or whatever it may be, right? Does that happen to you with some music or something, like a song you have, maybe? I don't know. You played it for somebody and you think it's kind of like shit, but they're like, oh, this is the best.
Yeah, I mean, there are songs that I turn into my publishing company that I think is the best shit I've ever done that they ignore, and then there's total garbage that they're like, man, everyone in the office is really excited about this one. And there is a sense where I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? But at the same time, too, I'm like, I also can't control that because
yeah,
I'm sure there's an intense Venn diagram on the idea of as art and stuff, but like with creativity and like music and that kind of art, I can't judge what they like. It's so subjective. Now, if I could have made it better, that's definitely something I think about all the time. But if someone likes it, I let it go. I tend to just let it go.
Yeah, of course, right. I mean, look, there's a right and a wrong, but there's not a right and a wrong, if that makes sense. I was trying to think of another way to say right and wrong, but I couldn't. My brain does not that work that fast. And so what I mean is like, I can make you a steak, right? But if I burn it and it's black,
Right.
it's wrong. Okay, there's no right about it. But if I sous vide it and then butterflied it and roasted it in the oven or whatever, but then this other guy he grilled it and then did this other thing or whatever and served it. There's no right or wrong, right? There's just different ways to get to the same, destination. That's what being a chef is all about. Like every chef is different. That's why when you watch how to fry an egg, every chef on YouTube will tell you a completely different way. That's because they all have a different way, but there are wrong ways to do it, that every chef would agree with. So it's probably that way with music too, right? Like even though it is art, there are still some wrong things. Like if somebody recorded the vocals like way off and you couldn't even hear them, right? Like technical stuff, I guess, is where it lies, right? Like there's
I remember when we first moved to Nashville, we were young little babies, and my wife was working in a restaurant, and I was just touring. So when I wasn't touring, I wasn't writing or anything, and so she was working late one night, and I remember actually having to Google how to make eggs. I was like, I'm 27 years old.
Oh shit!
And I just literally Googled, how do you make eggs?
Did Google say, what the fuck? Did it have just a WTF? What if Google just said that? It was like, WTF.
I like how Google is. They're like, well, you can scramble them this way, and you can fry them this way.
That is true. That is true.
They let me off the hook and just told me how to do it.
So what did you do? What did you end up cooking? How did you do it?
I just scrambled them.
That's the easiest, right?
Oh yeah, you just put them in a bowl and stir that up, and then pour that in a hot pan. Okay, cool.
Easy peasy, right? Yeah. There actually is a lot of, I could honestly probably talk about probably for a good hour about eggs. No joke. Like, no joke. Like, there's just so much on, we could start from which came first, right? The chicken just go to the end. But yes, it's crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. Just like music, though. I mean, you could probably talk about a guitar string for an hour if you really break it down and started thinking of all the stories and all the things and all the whatever.
Talk about Metallica, I guess, for around 300 hours. It's all well documented on the internet.
Yeah, man. And look, that podcast is like super popular, dude. Like, you guys really have a good, you mentioned that earlier, but you really do have a big fan base, and people love you guys, man. The reviews I read, like, people aren't just like, yeah, good show, moving on. They're like, oh my God, just like the greatest show. I guess if you have that sort of, is it a niche podcast because it's Metallica? Is it niche? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
is it a niche?
We didn't really go into it for this reason, but it was sort of lucky that they're one of the biggest bands of all time. So that doesn't really hurt. It comes with But as you know, I mean, everyone in the world loves food, but the podcast has got to be good for it to count and to compete with all the other great podcasts out there. So
absolutely,
we were just lucky that Ethan and I, my co-host, had some chemistry, and we worked hard on the front end and did our research, and we tried to bring a lot of integrity to the project and a lot of humor. And so, and then of course, being like quote unquote musician, like industry insiders, that added a fresh angle. There's a lot of music podcasts of two super fans who just want to talk about how much they love a band, but being able,
nobody wants to hear that.
Well, it better be funny, or it better be, it better not just be two dudes in a room. And the podcast I do with Bob is we talk about that a lot, because it's essentially a buddy comedy podcast, and there are a million of those dudes, of two guys who are like, I was funny in high school. Yeah, I was. Let's just talk about anything and people will love it. And that doesn't really translate, it's like your funny friends who are funny, like, at a bar, but then they try to do stand-up or something. It's like, dude, it doesn't work.
You can't trust your friends, right? Friends lie. They will laugh at shit that's not funny, or maybe they were laughing at you the whole time. Like, you don't fucking know. Like, I don't trust my friends with anything they say.
And they may sincerely be laughing, but they're laughing because they know you. They understand the idea of you, and they contextualize it in everything they know about you. So, your tone of voice, or you going into a character, or you talking about something that triggers something you guys joked about in college or whatever, you cannot do that on a podcast.
Yeah.
You have to assume that people are listening, they don't know who the hell you are, and why would they listen to you? So that's something we think about all the time, And I'm lucky to do it with Bob, because he's such a fascinating, strange, wonderful guy that he generates a lot of what's interesting about the show just by letting him talk into a microphone for a couple of minutes.
No, man, you guys both were. Pardon me, that's not a COVID cough, I promise. There's you guys work really well off each other, man. You guys it's a really good podcast. You guys just have a good rapport. It seems like the last time Bob was on, I mentioned to him, I said, it seems like, you're poking the bear, right? Like, it's just kind of seeing what will come out of the other person. That's what I get when I'm listening to it. You guys kind of throw a few barbs at each other, but it's all just in good fun. Really, it's just the whole podcast is in good fun. That's what's a great thing about that podcast. Just in good fun. You guys, we're gonna laugh. I enjoy it. It's kind of short and sweet, to the point, and in and out. Get some laughs. Hear something interesting. Usually, you always hear something interesting that I didn't know when I listen to that.
Yeah, well, we've been friends for so long, and we toured together for years. So that's essentially just how we talked on the tour bus. And so there's just a lot of trust of like, if we go here, I trust where he'll take it. He trusts me to help rein it in or take it somewhere else interesting.
Sure.
And then a lot of that too is borne out in editing. You know, I make sure when I edit it that I keep it tight and right, as we say, and I make us look good. You know, if we fumble
Absolutely.
and stupid, I take it out. You know, that's a big part of it too.
It's just like, go for it, right? You're just like, go for it. And if it works, we'll keep it. If not,
there's no map. There's no, hey, we're going to talk about this. It's very much like, see what happens. So in that way, it's really different than my Metallica podcast, which is very, usually, unless we're doing those live streams, it's very, not rehearsed. It's very
structured. Is it just, you just have it?
Structured and researched. That was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
We were talking about, you know, the band in 1997. This is what tour they did. This is the awards they won. This is what song, blah, blah, blah. So with Bob, it's like, yeah, Poking the Bear is actually, we should actually call the podcast Poking the Bear, because that's really what it is.
Yeah, it is. You know, this is, I was teasing Bob when he came on, the podcast about the name of it, because I was so confused by the name of the podcast. I'm still confused by the name of the podcast. I can't even still say the name of the podcast. You know, and I was like, don't you think that's confusing? He's like, no, this is the easiest. He's like, this is the easiest name to remember. I was like, I don't think so, man. There's a lot of words in that name. I can't, you know, I'm okay. We're not okay. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. You know, I was like, I'm lost. I'm already lost. But when he says it, it just flies off so fast. Like,
right.
Okay, I guess I'm the idiot, which is more than likely the case.
It's a branding problem for sure. It was a funny joke we had where, you know, you're trying to reassure somebody like, look, I'm okay, you're okay. And then like, well, I'm not okay. And you're because kind of playing with that whole everyone kind of lies about that shit, you know, like everyone, and the truth really is both, you know, like you are okay, but also not okay. So anyway, that I wanted to shorten it to just I'm okay, you know, the I'm okay podcast, but because it's hard to look for. And when I tell people I tell people on my Metallica podcast who want to get interested in it, I'm like, don't even look up the podcast name, just look up Schneider.
Yeah, that's a better way. That's smart. That's a better way to look it up. Now it does make me remember the name, not remember the title, but it makes me remember that the name is confusing to me, if that makes sense.
We're going in the most roundabout way to stick in someone's head. Yeah. I remember that it's hard to say, and I remember that I can't remember it. That's
that's pretty much it. I remember that it's confusing as fuck for me.
Right.
But you know, I like things like that in a lot of ways. Like it makes it more interesting, even though I'm teasing about it. And it makes it a little more interesting for me in some way. Like, you know, because I'm okay. We wouldn't even be talking about the name of it. It's just one of those things. And again, it's probably just me. I speak 2 languages like all the time. So you know, my wife's from Spain, so I constantly, and it's not that I know 2 languages, I speak 2 languages daily, right? So I write in it, I'm speaking, and sometimes my brain just doesn't compute things. I mean, it's just that simple, you know.
It makes you feel any better. Many other people have been confused by it. And when it turned out that people were going to start, you know, we noticed that people were listening to that show, and I was like, I started like responsibility for like, okay, this is a real thing. People are listening. I wanted to do kind of a rebranding pretty early on, and you know, Bob knows that.
I was like, no.
Well, he said what he said to you. I'm guessing he was like, dude, it's great. I'm okay. You're okay. I'm not okay. You're not okay. It's great. What do you mean? And I'm like, I mean, okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Not okay, but okay.
Yeah. I'm not okay with that, but okay, we'll go with it.
But the cool thing is, I mean, the title of that show really is honest. It really is like who we are. It's our humor. It was born out of a tour joke. So in that way, it really does sum up the show pretty well.
It's a crazy name, and it's not a crazy. I'm not trying to use crazy in that way, but it's got that energy, right? So the name is energetic unto itself. So it does give you a very good idea of what the podcast is going to be like. You know, the way it hits you emotionally. You jump into it, it makes sense, right? Yeah. It's just a little bit of that, like you said. So yeah. Clint, I want to ask you this, because I know you probably got to go here soon, man, but I have a couple more questions. I really want to get your opinion on this. As someone who's not from the food industry. What do you think about veganism? What does that mean to you?
Well, my wife has been through several different iterations of that vegetarianism and veganism, uh, both for animal rights reasons and for health reasons.
Yeah.
And and then of course I eat whatever she's doing. So I don't. I feel like there's a moral problem eating meat. I really do, and I think it's a better time than ever to have substitutes for it. And we mostly don't. I would say we probably mostly don't eat meat, although she might call me on that. Um, Culturally, the way I've kind of looked at the whole issue is I feel like it's unfortunately been co-opted and politicized in a way to where you have to be all in on the team or you're not. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, I had a friend once who was like a 10-year vegetarian. And one day on the road, he was like, I'm going to eat a hamburger today. And it was like this big shocking thing. And he was like, dude, I haven't eaten meat for 10 years. Like, I can try to have one burger. And he ate it and he was like, it wasn't for me. There are some people who would look at that and be like, well, you're not a vegetarian anymore. They like set the clock back or something.
Yeah.
And I've always found that distasteful in that community of like, unless you're all in and 100% committed, it's almost like sobriety or something. It's almost welcoming. Whereas the way I see it personally, because I consider it more of a moral issue, is like, if I'm eating 80% vegetarian or vegan and 20% eating meat, that's better than what I was doing before, which was nothing, eating meat every day.
Yeah.
So what that's done, her kind of dipping into those worlds, which she was a vegetarian for like 7 years. What that does is like, we just have an awareness of what we're eating, where it's coming from. We try to be smart about it. I think the plan is to ultimately quit eating meat. So anyway, that's my convoluted answer about where we sit with that personally. That's kind of where we're at on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious, what your, how you see it, like the filter that it, and in your mind when you hear the term vegan and vegetarian, and just how it's affected your life. That's interesting. You're not alone. A lot of people feel that way about that side of things. If vegan is a lifestyle, right? And if you're not all in, yeah, you can get in trouble. I remember this one food truck. So I used to own a food truck here in Austin, Spanish food. And in my food park, there was a vegan truck, a vegan trailer right next to me. It was called Unity. And this lady, Leslie, super great, been a vegan. She hadn't been a vegan her whole life, but maybe like 5 years or so, and then decided to open this food truck. Well, she had tons of people come to see her because, whatever, if you're a vegan place, you got fans, right? They will come to you. Right. So great, no problem. Well, one day she tells me, this is after lunch service. We're sitting down chatting. She's like, hey, I didn't even think about it, but I put on an old leather jacket. This was in the winter, like in November or something. She's like, I put on a leather jacket and came to work, and people saw me, and I got a bunch of hate mail and emails and phone calls. People telling me they're never going to eat in my trailer again. And she's like, I had this leather jacket from before I was a vegan, and I just didn't even think about it. I put it on and came to work, and isn't that crazy? And that's how it is. People like then told her, I'm never coming to eat at your place again.
It's too much, and I don't really understand.
Too much, right? Yeah,
that attitude, and it turns a lot of normal people off.
I agree.
We went to a vegan cooking class where we made like vegan queso, and we loved it. It's like awesome, but it's not like my whole life will now be centered around this religion of veganism. I think it's awesome, and it does a lot of good, and I think there should be more credit to people who are trying to get better instead of just being great at it and changing their entire ideology. I just think you got to meet people a little more in the middle of that.
I agree. Look, there's the honest truth is being 100% vegan is kind of stupid. And I'm going to, lay it out here. This is my feelings on it. Like, and to be frank with you, it's actually impossible to be 100% vegan. Right. So that person that's judging you is not even really looking at the reality of things, because I guarantee you there was some sort of animal, something getting in somewhere on something they have, unless they literally live in the woods with a leaf over their privates and kill their squirrels every day, or not squirrels, I guess, picking plants. Like, that's the only way, because there's just in a lot of things you don't even know about. But my thing is, most people are vegan or vegetarian the majority of the week that they eat. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's say you have a bowl of cereal, or you have some of this, or you have an apple for a meal and some fruit and this and that and cheese. That's a vegetarian meal. Most people eat. It's not like we're eating 32-ounce steaks 3 times a day. all of us, like, it's all about moderation. It's
Yeah.
about a balanced diet. So I don't actually believe in any of those. I don't believe in 100% veganism or 100% vegetarian or 100% carnivorous diets. I don't believe in any of that. It's all about a balance, getting a little bit of everything into your diet. Now, this is something I'll tell you, Clint, that just because I had there's some interesting facts I didn't really think about. I had this farmer, very famous farmer on recently, who owns a farm in Virginia called J&L. And I asked him about the veganism. I love asking farmers about that because they'll surprise you with their answers, actually. And he said, look, I get it, the morality of animals and dying. And I'm with that too. I don't want to see animals dying, and there's definitely a good way to do it. And a farmer who has a small farm, and they are killing animals ethically, no doubt about it. You know, that meat is your good hands. It's the factory farming. That's the really what farmers have an issue with, and the morality behind that. And they're with vegans on that. They stand with vegans and me and you. You know, nobody wants to see that happen. But when you eat it, Taco Bell and McDonald's, that's what you're supporting. That's what all that meat comes from.
Right.
So, but he said, look, the honest truth is if we stop raising livestock and just started, you know, having, acres of plants and vegetables stuff. He said that actually kills more animals than killing livestock. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, think about it. You have to get all these machines to run the fields for all these vegetables and stuff. You said, you know how many animals die in these machines, little mouse, foxes, birds, little things like that are going to die just to get these vegetables grown. So animals are going to die more actually than if you're just raising livestock, not doing anything to the land, right? That cow, the pigs, the chickens, the goats, the sheep, they're all just walking around naturally. And you don't, that's actually less, pressure or whatever on the earth, and on less animals die that way, which I thought was fascinating. I had no idea about that. I literally didn't even think of that angle. So that's something I'm going to start talking with to vegans about.
Definitely more complicated than I think.
It's complicated, right? Yeah, I agree.
And I also feel like if the net goal is to alleviate suffering or offset suffering, I'd rather see the emphasis go to doing that for human beings first.
Good point.
And so, those are just some of the things that roll around my head. If people who are smarter than me on either side, like, I want to be a part of the conversation about how to be better at all of it. So, my wife and I are constantly watching documentaries and doing research and hoping to evolve, on the issue. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Yeah, look, we all do what we can. It's, again, I think you bring up a lot of great points, which is don't shame people on whatever choices they make. Maybe they can't live 100% of whatever lifestyle, whatever. But if they're trying, right, if they had a vegan meal or a vegetarian meal, or they're just they're just eating more vegetables in general and cutting back a little bit on the meats, or, whatever it may be, or the meats they're getting, I'm going to start getting it from the local butcher instead of from, Kroger or HEB or wherever I'm going to go, right? I'm going to start getting it from this local place. That's the best thing people can do, wherever they live. You live in Nashville, we live here in Texas. The best thing you can do there in Nashville is to buy locally, to buy from any of the, CSAs or, any sort of Sprouts or any place like that has a collective or farmers markets. That's the best way. It's healthier. It's better for you. And you're supporting a local economy. It's just that's it. That's how you and I, as a just general people, can help. And by doing that, it would eventually start to bring down the demand for the factory farming, because that's the only way they're going to change that. The demand's there. So why, if people don't stop eating at McDonald's, they're not going to stop making the food for it. It's that simple.
Yeah, and hopefully people will start waking up to that soon, because people, we were watching something from the 90s the other day, and someone, I won't name names, but someone who was considered like fat in the 90s looked thin. And my wife and I were like, what's going on there? And it's like, man, people are just big now. Like, what used to be considered big really isn't big anymore compared to
100%. Yeah.
Of Americans, and for me, performing country music a lot across America is like getting a good look at these audiences sometimes.
Yes. This stuff catches up to us, right? Like, all those years of all the fast food and TGI Fridays and Outbacks over the last 30 years has caught up to us. I mean, that's the reality. A lot of younger people are demanding better food. It's actually the younger millennial generation that has changed the landscape of food.
Right.
We have them to thank. It's their demand for it, and the Instagram worthy pictures. As much as I hate that aspect of it, it helped the industry a lot, and made people want to start getting better food and providing better food and plating better food. You eat with your eyes a lot of times too, so it should look good as well, not just taste good. But yeah, the best thing you could do is the amount of time you can give yourself every week on it, do that, whatever it is. If you can make a few fresh meals a week, do that. If you can, you know what I mean? It's just whatever you can do. Look, we all got shit that we're doing in our lives, families and jobs and bills. And I get it. Look, I don't change my oil on my car. So I'm sure some mechanic is looking at me like, he is an idiot over here. Can't even change his oil, So it's sort of the same thing. I go pay for that. Would I, maybe if I knew more about it, I could take care of my car better and this, that, and the other, maybe so. But with food, that is something we all, intake, right? So I'm just such an advocate for it. I'm always going to be an advocate. I'm always going to push for people to try to eat the best they can. And just think about it the most they can. I'm obviously not saying change your whole life and, but just think about it the most you can.
Yeah. Right on. I agree.
Right.
Man, I had a blast. It's good to meet you and good to hear your perspective on stuff. And I hope I didn't bum any of your audience out by talking about food.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And we'll see you down the line, man, for sure.
Absolutely, brother. Again, thank you so much. Enjoy Nashville, brother. Stay safe, stay clean out there. And my best to you and your family. And we'll talk soon, brother.
As well.
Thank you, bud. All right. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast as much as I did. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to email the podcast at patrick@texasrealfood.com. And don't forget, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all the different places you can get podcasts. You'll find us on there. Or you can just go to our website, go to thelonestarplate.com. And you can find everything you need there, all the episodes. And you can check us out on YouTube if you want to watch it. We video these now, on a little webcam here and do the Zoom stuff. And, so if you feel like doing it that way, go to the Texas Real Food YouTube channel and you can find it there. Make sure to follow Texas Real Food as well on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe. And if you are so inclined, please leave us a review anywhere you can. Follow us on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcast. That would really help us out as well. So if you support, what we're trying to do here. So thanks again for listening. Really do appreciate it. Without you guys, what's the point of doing this? So if you have any suggestions on how we can make the show better, please let us know. All right. Thanks again. Be safe out there. Wash your hands.